So, how to retire to Spain? Well, as you know, people who watch this channel, our videos come from questions we get asked and things we come across on a daily basis. So, I sort of, yesterday afternoon, I got asked, Chris, how do I retire to Spain? I thought, wow, that's a broad question. But I managed, as I'm talking, I was writing down notes and go, well, these are the main points that you need to think. And I thought, wow, that would make a really, really, really good video for our YouTube channel. So last night when I was sort of looking at my notes, I came up with 3 headings, how to retire to Spain. I came up with, the first one was residency status, the second one was choosing somewhere to live, and the third one was starting a new life. And then under those, I tried to get 4 main points, which basically would give you a guideline of where to start. If you have if you've got a blank piece of paper and you're thinking, how do I retire to Spain? This is going to be a very broad guideline of what you need to look at. So evidently, point 1 is residency status, something very close to our heart here in Upsticks. And the first thing you need to check with your residency status, because you're going to need residency in Spain in some form or another if you plan to live here. And the first thing you need to check is, how do I get the residency and what gives me the right to reside in Spain? Are you an EU citizen? Have you got EU family members? Are you a third country national who needs to achieve or get a visa before you come to allow you to stay here? So you need to check that out. Evidently, that's a plug for us because that's the bit that we do. Number 2 is you need to check how much money you've got. So if you're planning for the future, Spain isn't as cheap as it used to be. It really depends on the areas and stuff where you live, but we'll come to that in a minute in another section. But the main thing is what money will you need to qualify for your residency, and different residencies require different amounts. Excuse me. Point 3 is healthcare. Not only will you need healthcare when you come to live in Spain, you're going to need healthcare for your residency application. So make your research surrounding what requirements you're going to need for the application that you're going to make for your residency. And lastly, it's your timeline. So you've done your research into how you're going to get to Spain, what qualifies you, what healthcare and the money you need. What's your timeline? People have all sorts of timelines which are dictated by house sales, family, where they're going to move to, etc. So really you need to have a, albeit flexible, but a timeline in place, because there's certain things that always need to be actioned at certain points of the moving process. So that's residency status. Point 2 is choosing somewhere to live. As you can see, I'll look at my notes here. When you're choosing somewhere to live, I think it's always best to do discovery trips. We call them discovery trips. So discovery trips should be done at different times of the year. You know, fly over to different areas. I know it's not, I'm making it sound very easy. Yeah, just jump on a plane, fly over. Yeah, brilliant. No, it's not that easy to understand. But, you know, if you're looking in a few years' time, well-planned discovery trips to see where you're going to live at different times of the year is always a really good idea, because Spain can dramatically change the seasons, the weather, the amount of people, which brings me on to point 2, which is choosing somewhere to live is your support network. Do you prefer to be in an expat area, where it's easy to speak your language and you're supported even by food that you know, etc.? Or are you really going to go for it and go live on the top of a mountain in a village with 2,000 people in it and learn Spanish intensively and only eat Spanish food? You know, that's 2 extremes. But what is the support network around you? Okay, so are you going to need people around you to support you? It's always a good idea to make sure that you know where you're getting your gas from, you know where you're getting your electric from. Is there a local plumber? Is there a Facebook group which can inform you of all of these? Recently, I've been quite involved with people coming to Compiter. Now, I wasn't very familiar with Compiter at all before I met Scats from the U2 Spain channel, Anthony and Ian, who have been on Channel 4. They're opening a B&B there, and it turns out there's a whole support network and community in such a small town on Facebook and locally. So I think that's brilliant. Check out your support network around you. Where can you afford to live? It's certainly worth checking out what is your long-term plan when choosing somewhere to live, of how long you want to be there, because it's okay, a few people come over maybe with 60, 70k in the bank in savings. There's a bit of a gap till they get a pension maybe. And is that going to be enough? Is that going to carry you over? Is that, for that gap, fiscally look at how much you need. And I personally, if you come up with a figure for the first year of how much you're going to need to live, double it. Because you get excited, you buy more expensive wine, you don't quite know what you're doing, and you always spend more. It's like slightly holiday mode, though I have lived on weekends holiday mode for 23 years. When you first get here, you quite evidently spend more than you expect to. So, choosing where to live, renting or buying, that's point 4. This is the debate. A lot of people come over, sell up, throw all their eggs in one basket and buy, but you've got to remember that in some areas of Spain, the property market isn't as buoyant as it would be in the UK. So if you pile all your money into one asset and you need to suddenly grab it out, i.e. sell the property, can you do that? You can't always do that. They sometimes sit in the market for many years. But then you've got a battle with rentals. At the moment, the cost of the soul, there just aren't any rentals. You can't get a long-term rental for love nor money here at the moment. You have to go inland a bit more. So check out your options. Are you going to be renting, short-term renting, long-term renting? A lot of people make a massive mistake of coming and renting in September and then saying, right, we'll rent for 6 months, we'll look for somewhere at the end of those 6 months, which is March, April, but then people are gearing up for summer. And they go, no, there's no more long-term rentals, we're gearing up to have the tourists in. So they send to me more short-term rentals for 6 months in the winter. Then you get to summer, you could be cream crackered. So definitely check out your options. Are you going to be buying, are you going to be renting? Look at the pros and cons. If you're buying, is it easy? If the worst case scenario happens, you have to sell quickly to sell a property in the area. And if you're renting, you really want to get your feelers out early, because if you just turn up and look for something to rent, it's not always available. So that brings me to point 3, which is now starting a new life in Spain. Okay, learning the language. I personally believe and have had personal experience of learning the Spanish language, and I believe it's a good idea, but don't do it in sufferance. If you're retiring, you're never going to be perfect at Spanish. I've lived here 23 years and all my Spanish is good, and people are like, wow, your Spanish is amazing. But to be fair, if you live somewhere for 23 years, your language should be pretty good. I'm still not native. My children who were born here, they're native. They speak native Spanish. So get out your head that you want to be perfect, and just just start, just try your best. People laugh at you, it doesn't matter, you don't understand what they're saying anyway if they laugh at you. If they don't laugh at you, then the more likely they're going to embrace you for trying. Just have a go. Always have your notebook on you. I've got my notebook, constantly got my notebook, have my notebook from when I first came here, and you're always picking up things, write it down and learn it. And stick to structured lessons, but don't get too obsessed with them, because I don't believe it's the way forward. Number 2, making sure once you're here, you are fiscally set up correctly. Okay, so you've done all your research regarding your residency, you've qualified for your residency, but before you come, it's probably a good idea to speak to somebody about what your setup's going to be moving forward. So we do a lot of non-lucrative visas, and it's always a good idea, because that's a 5-year temporary residency period, of which after that you can work if you want, but evidently if you plan on retiring, not going to. But it's definitely worth speaking to somebody about the long-term effects of you moving to Spain, how much tax you're going to pay, and where you should hold your money. Number 3, protecting your family once you're here. So if you have got assets in Spain, and God forbid you retire here and the worst thing happens in a few years, you pass away, or your partner passes away simultaneously, or who knows what could happen. Okay, make sure you or your partner is protected, first of all, with a Spanish will. Make sure you've got a funeral plan in place. It's pretty brutal here. In 2 days, they're trying to sort everything out. It goes quick. I think it's about the only thing that goes that quick in Spain is as soon as you die, that's it. The process kicks in. So you really need someone. At that point, if you haven't got a funeral plan in place, then you really could come a cropper, financially, because people are there waiting for money to work. Something happens. It's terrible, but it's the way it is. So will, funeral plans, and also I always think it's a good idea to have a power of attorney for your partner, from a notary. If somebody, although you can't use power of attorney when someone's passed, if someone is incapacitated or they can't move or whatever, it's good to have a notarized authorization for you to act on their behalf. And generally have a folder which is accessible by your family. We do these when we do our wills, Spanish wills. We have a folder which we always advise you keep copies of passports, NIEs, PASRONs, even if they're out of date. Just keep copies in a folder of all essential documents, maybe one electric bill, just so if something did happen, a member of your family could grab that folder, they could take it to the lawyer, and the lawyer would have access just to the essential numbers that they need to start doing their work. Yeah, so that's a good idea. And last but not least on my retiring to Spain, how to retire to Spain video is future proofing. When you're looking to come over, so you sorted out your residency status, you sorted out where you're going to live, but future proofing, if you're coming over your 60s and you plan to spend 20 years here, look towards that. It goes quickly. I've known people here for nearly 20 years, and people who are in their 40s and under 60s. I know people I've met people who are in their mid 50s who are now coming up to 70, and as we know, unfortunately things change. So if you're deciding to go and live at the top of a mountain with absolutely no access, down the track, 4 hours away from a hospital, and in 10 years time you're going to be 80, it might not be the best idea. Although it's an idyllic situation, you might want to try and find somewhere closer to town. You want a future proof. Just imagine where you're going to be in 10 years time. And again, that relates back to if you're going to live in a property that you're going to want to sell in 5 years, make sure that the area where you live, the property sell well. If you're buying an apartment, maybe check it, it's got a lift, So future proof, put yourself 10 years time. Have you got a garage for your car which has an access for a lift which takes you up to your apartment? It's a great idea instead of stairs. That happens all the time. Where you live, do you have room for a wheelchair? If unfortunate happens, you go to hospital, you break a leg or something like that, you need to park, something happened, can you bring a wheelchair in to get you out of the car while you recover? So all these things are good to look at. So, okay, that's our video about retiring to Spain. I'm actually going to do a PDF with all these points that I made, so you can make your own notes on the bottom of it, and hopefully that will give you a structure and a plan for the future about coming here. And please click on subscribe and like our videos and share them if you know anybody who is going to be moving to Spain. We'll catch up in a video soon.